Welcome to our webinar. Let's give a few more minutes for folks to join. In the meantime, please write your name and where you are from on the chat so we can all get to know each other. Добро пожаловать в наш вебинар. Ввиду того, что базовый язык является английским в американских университетах, я буду использовать английский, но для вступительного слова я передам слово основателю TajRupt, студенту Гарварда и Стэнфорда Айзджону Азими. Пожалуйста, Айзджон Азими.
Thank you very much, Ganjina. So Ganjina is one of the sort of the star students of TajRupt, who is an exemplary story, who represents an exemplary story of what it means to be, a student who goes from post-Soviet country to one of the top universities in the world. She's a student at New York University, Abu Dhabi, and she has secured a full scholarship to go there. She was actually part of the innovation incubator cohort at TajRupt that I personally taught. And I believe she represents what every student from post-Soviet countries can achieve if they put in the effort, and most importantly, if they follow the right process throughout this adventure. A little bit about myself, as Ganjina mentioned, I'm currently a master's student at Harvard University as pursuing a public policy degree, and a master's student in business administration at Stanford University as a Knight Hennessy Scholar. And TajRupt is a non-governmental organization that I launched a few years ago. The goal of TajRupt admissions is to provide the opportunities for students from post-Soviet countries, from Russia to Armenia to Kyrgyzstan to Kazakhstan, in order to improve their outcomes on applications. And that is what our mission is. And today's webinar is an introductory webinar that will provide you firsthand information on what the process is, and most importantly, how we at TajRupt Admissions can help every single one of you be by your side as you walk through the application process. Thanks again, and I'll pass it on to Ganjina. В завершение просто хочу сказать, что у нас регламент такой, что Ganjina, она будет разговаривать, основываясь на слайдах. Если у вас есть вопросы, обязательно напишите в чате во время ее презентации, потому что в конце мы перейдем обратно к вопросам, которые вы задаете в чате. И также в конце у нас будет отдельный сегмент, где будет Q&A о наших услугах, а также вообще, в принципе, о чем TajRupt Admissions будет заниматься. Thanks again, guys. I'll pass it back to Ganjina. Let's get started.
Thank you. Just before starting, please, guys, mute yourself so it's going to be easy for all of us. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I'm very excited to see so many of you interested in our program. Let's start. Just to give you a little bit of background, again, I'm a junior year student at NYU Abu Dhabi, majoring in interactive media and minoring in computer science and Arabic. And today we're going to talk about the process and increasing your admissions odds and the structure of our courses. This is the picture of the school that I went to. So I was an ordinary schoolgirl like most of you, where I studied in a school that had Soviet Union system of education. What did the school teach me? It taught me memorization. And what did I realize as I went through my education at NYU Abu Dhabi? It's all about critical thinking. And that's exactly what the Soviet Union system of education lacked in schools like mine. The 21st century requires rigorous, broad, and imaginative educational training. And studying abroad, especially in liberal arts curriculum universities, provides extraordinary opportunities for individual exploration and growth, and will prepare you guys to succeed in a truly global world. If at any point you have questions, please use the chat function. It makes it much more enjoyable for me and much more beneficial for you as well to get some personalized answers to your questions. So as we go through this content, if you do have any questions, feel free to use the chat function. I will check it regularly so I see all the questions you are asking. Everyone asks me why I chose to study at NYU Abu Dhabi. I have always loved a lot of different things. Science, languages, music, sports, and theater. I struggled with the idea of having to focus on only one thing at the university in Tajikistan, which I was originally thought I would end up. I was only 15 in my final year of high school, and I felt that it was too early to limit myself to the study of one subject. And then I slowly started coming to the realization that there exists an entire world beyond my own. I began to cultivate a sense of curiosity that would continuously that would edge me off my comfort zone. And my visit to NY Abu Dhabi intensified those feelings. With students from over 100 countries, NYU Abu Dhabi seemed like the obvious place to be. Some students told me that the reason they don't want to study abroad is being away from home since they can't live without their family or without their friends. Personally, I'm very close to my family, so being, far away from home, yes, was very hard at the beginning. But what made it feel better is being here and being surrounded by people who understand what it's like to be away from home, but at the same time, understand the value of why they're here. Everybody gets it, like homesickness is real. I wasn't exposed to much diversity, probably like many of you guys. And when I moved to NY Abu Dhabi, there are like more than 130 nationalities, and students speak like more than 100 languages. As an example, during my freshman year, I had roommates from Germany, China, and Czech Republic. And now my roommates are from Armenia, Turkey, and Ukraine. The people that we're surrounded with, they come from all over the world with so many different backgrounds and experiences. And I think that with that, there's so much more to learn outside of the classroom. If you're here and part of the conversation, just light up the chat function a little bit for me. I would love to know what grade level you are in, where you're tuning in from. If you're a student or a parent, just write it in the chat function. That would be great. I'm very happy that I chose to study abroad. There are so many great opportunities. I'm actually very, very, very excited for all of you guys. As an example, I never thought as a college student I would have the opportunity to interact with Hollywood actors, presidents of different countries, technology leaders, political figures. During the first year of college, I saw NY Abu Dhabi upperclassmen posting so many beautiful photos from their winter break, smiling faces at the Great Wall of China, wearing colorful dresses in front of the aesthetic walls of Buenos Aires to exquisite dishes in Florence. You may literally find yourself at a political conference in Singapore or a film festival in Berlin. Your winter break might even be in Paris or in Ethiopia, like mine. With a student body from so many countries, you will always have a friend no matter where your travels take you. Another amazing opportunity. During 4 years of undergraduate studies, you guys will be prepared for the rigorous next step of joining the workforce or applying to graduate schools. After finishing your undergraduate studies, you guys gonna be employed around the world in industries.
So, Амир Раджабов, пожалуйста, отключите звук. Те, кто сейчас только зашли, еще раз, отключите свой звук, пожалуйста. Уткир Мавлонов, Мавлидин, Амир. Спасибо.
Thank you. Let's continue. Internships are one of the best ways to gain experience, explore industries and companies. Students here intern at Google, Louis Vuitton, Facebook, TikTok, McKinsey, SpaceX, what else? Instagram, and etc. As an example, myself, who would have imagined that me personally coming from the Soviet Union system of education that didn't even know how to fill out the common application would do so many amazing internships. I interned at Harvard Innovation Labs during my freshman year. Sophomore year, UNICEF, the United Nations Children Funds, and venture capital in Spain next summer. After studying abroad for 4 years, we'll leave you with jobs and graduate schools lined up for you. You guys will be employed around the world and attend top universities to study for master's or doctorate degrees. Now let's talk about TajRupt admissions. Those of you who think that studying abroad is impossible, you are deeply mistaken. From personal experience, I can tell you that yes, it's a lot of fun, but it's not easy. When I was in 10th grade, I was an ordinary school girl who used to participate in a lot of Olympiads, of having a goal just to like studying in Tajikistan, like many of my classmates. I had no idea about common application and college admissions. Applying to colleges abroad is a daunting task for everyone, no matter how many articles you read or you watch YouTube tutorials. I was lucky to have TajRupt guidance in every step when I was applying to NY Abu Dhabi. And I believe I wouldn't be able to make it until now without TajRupt. Just to talk briefly about what looks good on college applications. The most important step you can take to make yourself a competitive candidate is, of course, to work hard in school. Your GPA is the single most influential factor that any college will consider. Colleges want to win over students who work hard in school, but they also want to see that you have got a well-rounded life outside of your academic pursuits. While you don't need to go to like literally and join like every single club your school offers, you should participate in a few well-chosen extracurricular activities. Your SAT or TOEFL score can do a lot to set you apart, to see the range of typical scores at the school you are considering. Check out their school profiles, and then you can just see the range of the TOEFL and SAT score. Your grades and test scores are your opportunity to demonstrate that you would be a strong college student. Your extracurricular afford you the chance to show off your wide range of talents and interests. Your essay, by contrast, is an opportunity to let admission officers hear your unique voice. You may opt to share your information that didn't make it into the rest of your application. And then the last one is letter of recommendation. Typically, applications will ask for a letter of recommendation from at least two teachers, but some may allow you to include additional notes from coaches, employees, or counselors. Now, let's talk about why TajRupt admissions. Now, let me ask Aziz Jan Azimi to talk about why TajRupt admissions and the result, and also the courses that we're offering. Please, Aziz Jan Azimi.
Thank you, Ganjina. And I guess we can keep the screen as you're sharing it, and I can also share my
Yes.
screen as well. Okay, so we'll focus on Ganjina's screen as the host screen. So to keep going, to pick up on what Ganjina just said, what we realize, guys, is that in regards to applying to universities, whether it's undergraduate or graduate level, there's a set of common mistakes that students from post-Soviet countries generally make. And we are speaking based on experience of over the past 3 years, advising our students, TajRupt graduates, on the application processes. So what are those mistakes? First is generally the system is too complicated. What do we mean by that? The common application itself is the application system through which you can apply for hundreds, almost 1,000 US colleges. Top universities ranging from Harvard to NYU require the common application. But the issue is that the common application needs to be viewed as a system, right? And what do we mean by a system? You have to point yourself towards saying, how do I transmit my future aspirations and how my past experiences have led me to where I am today that has informed my future aspirations as an outcome, right? That system is exactly what we want you to be proficient in, because most students have this understanding and perception that, oh, I'll just put, for example, I've done academic tutoring as an extracurricular activity, that should be fine. But what we also don't realize is that students who are applying from post-Soviet countries require scholarships. If you require scholarships when you apply for college, what happens is that you're competing with top students from China, India, Philippines, Latin American countries, from Brazil to Panama. And those students, what distinguishes them, right? Because everybody has high test scores, everybody has high GPAs. It's the extracurricular activities that make the difference, right? So if you just put that you had an academic tutoring club for 5 students, that's good, but it's not sufficient to distinguish you. At TajRupt, we focus on having you design your own social impact projects to showcase that you care about giving back to the community, which is a very important element of liberal arts universities. So we understand and we have our own entire viewpoint on how we can help you show to universities to what extent you can have leadership potential for them. So our approach is we push the common application as a system, right, that has very diverse outputs ranging from extracurriculars to the essays, and we will push it to an understanding for you on each component so that you can get a head start. Second, financial aid is a total mess, right? We know that, all of us experience it. I personally am very lucky to receive a scholarship from the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program to attend my MBA studies at Stanford. At Harvard, I did not have a scholarship, so I know exactly, how it is to cope with in an opportunity where you don't have access to a scholarship. So what have we done? We have developed an approach on optimizing college search options based on your personal needs. So all of you guys who are applying for undergrad, once you fill in the common application, if you require financial aid, which in our experience is 100% of students from post-Soviet countries, we ask you guys to also work on CSS profile. You'll have to submit it. But with regards to CSS, you have to be strategic about it, right? You have to signal to universities that your sort of status, although it might be, let's say, above average or high income in your own country, it is definitely nowhere near being high income by US standards, right? And US universities definitely realize that as well. So you have to be strategic about how you signal your financial position, and our approach is to help you in that process. Finally, even if you have already done your common application, right? You're good to go. In November, you'll click that submit button on Common App and you'll get your early decision application in, right? Or you're just working on your application a year in advance, you're an overachiever, that's fine. In your case, we can also help you by providing tailored review, one-on-one or in group format for your personal needs. Because remember, applications, it's very easy to detect if an application stands out or not based on our experience, because we've seen many applications, right, to US universities, both in undergraduate and graduate level. So our team has developed experience in detecting what type of application would stand out and what type of application would automatically get categorized as just, an ordinary application. Next slide, please, Ganjina. Okay, thank you, Ganjina. So with regards to results, I want to, again, focus on outcome-oriented mindset, as I kind of touched on this, right? If you look at the university decision as an outcome, right? That outcome is partially dependent on your inputs, your grades, your essays, your recommendations, but partially it is dependent on the competitive pool of applications, right? What does the pool look like of other applicants who are with you? You might have the best application out there in the world, but if you also have a highly competitive pool alongside you, there is no guarantee that you'll get accepted to all the colleges that you're applying for. So outcome-oriented mindset pushes you to optimize every input. So next time when you think about, oh, I'm a 10th grader in Armenia, right? As a 10th grader, I have one more year before I, let's say, graduate, right? And I'll be applying next year. I'll worry about my extracurriculars next year. That is not an outcome-oriented mindset, as an example. Why not? Because you have to realize that as a 10th grader, what you do now will impact the competitiveness of your extracurriculars a year from now when you apply for Common App, right? So outcome-oriented mindset will push you to optimize your daily inputs when you start preparing your essay, when you start preparing recommendations with your recommenders, when you start looking at those extracurriculars, and it changes the way you look. So what is the derivative of that? Derivative is optimization through decision criteria at each step of the way. We want to change the way you guys think about applications, right? We want you to think of the application process as a set of decisions, right? There are thousands of decisions that you will make in this process. One decision is, as an example, if you're a 9th grader in Kazakhstan and you're, let's say, choosing your electives in a school year, the decision of choosing which elective you will have on your transcript will have a very small but still role in your ultimate outcome, right? So we will push you to think about, how do I optimize my decisions on which extracurriculars I choose, which classes I take, how do I study for the SAT, etc. That is our responsibility. Again, guys, please mute yourself. Еще раз, пожалуйста, выключите свое аудио. Несколько еще есть пользователей, у которых все еще аудио есть. Спасибо. And then how are we going to achieve that, right? Well, obviously, besides this mindset approach, we have specific things that we're going to offer you. First is feedback, right? On your essays, on your extracurriculars, recommendation letters. Why do we, can you go back, Anjina, for one slide? I'm still not done. Now, why do we care about feedback as this really important thing? Because eventually, applications have to represent you holistically, right? Your personality. So when you are preparing your application, there are a set of biases about who you think you are based on your own experiences. Having somebody from outside who has experience looking at hundreds of applications will provide you critical analysis that will improve the way you think. As an example, when I was applying to Stanford for the Knight Hennessy Scholarship, just for context, Knight Hennessy Scholarship is the world's largest endowed scholarship program in the world. It is funded by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike. The endowment is $750 million. With this scholarship program, when I was applying, the questions had me reflect on who I am. I changed during the application process because the questions pushed me to think critically about who I really am at my core. What is my value system? There was a question, for example, that basically said, watch Steve Jobs' commencement speech at Stanford. I believe it was in 2005. And he talks about the concept of connecting the dots, right? Like your past has many, many dots from where you grew up to who your parents are to what you want to do in the future. And all those dots have to connect in order to make a case to the university for why your connection of dots is fitting that specific university's constellation of stars, right? And that logic absolutely changes about the way you think on the application process. Now we have to give you guys examples of our successful sort of students who have done this. And again, to date, we've done this for basically a nonprofit mode. And this year we're switching to a for-profit mode because we've realized having the ability to get funding from students like you, to get advice from us, will enable us to provide these services to more and more students. That's why we opened up a paid option, which is what Ganjina will be leading this session. So two examples. One is Alex Bochomloyev, who is also a student currently at New York University, the Shanghai campus. He received a 75% tuition scholarship, which added up to about $148,000 for 4 years. So in this case, you know, his family basically, when they applied, they asked for a full scholarship, but the university gave a 75% tuition reduction. So they still had to cover housing and partially a tuition. In regards to another case, Amitron Babayev, $165,000 scholarship from University of Akron in Ohio. This is our latest example. It's a full scholarship because the costs are less there. And in the case of Amitron, he started his application basically a year ahead, right? He started preparing for the Common App 1 year ahead. And he'll be going off to University of Akron, hopefully, if the whole COVID pandemic calms down a little, this fall. Okay, next slide. So what are the two offerings that we're giving to students that Ganjina will be leading this session, guys? There are two offerings. One is individual, another one is group. So this is how you as a student can get advice from TajRupt. Let's talk about first individual option because that one is tailored to your personal needs. So it's basically done in one-to-one format over 1 month. There's a total of 8 sessions, 2 times per week, right? And those sessions are approximately 1 hour long. That means that Ganjina will be on the phone, on Skype with you every week, 2 times a week, walking through specific set of questions that you have about your application, about future scholarships, etc. Now, what is distinguishing us from other sort of players in the market? We are beginning with diagnostics. First, we want to get to know who you are as a person, right? So before you begin this mentorship with Ganjina, we're going to send a detailed survey asking about your specific current status, right? That will let us, have a better picture of who you are, what your goals are, and have us sort of maximize the impact of our mindset change on you. So in that regard, when Ganjina conducts one-to-one coaching, we will adopt a personalized approach. Some of you might already be, advanced in your application stage. You already took the SATs and now you're working on your essays. Great. So Ganjina's work with you will focus on optimizing your essays. Others might be, let's say, in 9th grade, which is great because the younger you are when you begin, the better is your sort of marathon start run, right? Remember, this is a marathon. So if you're a 9th grader and you're just beginning, then Ganjina will work with you over the course of 1 month, total of 8 sessions, on everything from, how do you choose colleges to how do you choose majors and how do you be strategic about, your insights. I'll give you guys an example of being strategic with majors, right? Oftentimes, we have this mindset that, oh, I want to become an economist, I'm going to apply for economics, right? Which is a little bit faulty. Why? When you apply for economics, let's say to Harvard, you have students from India, from China, coming from top private schools, right? Who have taken advanced classes in economics at school level. In India, especially, English is their second language. They already have an advantage over post-Soviet students from CIS countries in language. Like if you are just going to put economics, you're in a highly competitive pool. Same thing with computer science, right? Now, how do you stay true to yourself while being strategic? You can add a second major to your common application, right? For example, in the case of Ganjina, what were your 2 majors that you had put for your common application? You're muted.
Okay. Mine was mathematics and art, so it's a mix of two.
And what was the choice there? How did you come to the choice of the two?
So since I participated in a lot of Olympiads, I was very interested in mathematics. So I was like, okay, let me choose mathematics. And then since I also was interested in design, I didn't know which one to choose between. So I decided to choose both of them and to put both of them.
Yeah, and that's kind of a signal, right? If you are telling the university that there are two majors you want to explore that are vastly different, in her case, math is STEM, arts is, completely different direction, you're going towards humanities, that signals to the university that this student is well-rounded, right? They have different experiences. Obviously, you need to have backup. You need to show them proof. So you need to have extracurriculars, etc. So with individual format, we also offer you a specialized software tracker. So we use Google Sheets. We are obsessed with Google Sheets in this organization. So you guys might know that we have also TajRupt AI, which is the first artificial intelligence lab in Central Asia. Became a finalist of Google AI Impact Challenge last year. Like, the reason we are so engineering in our approach is because we want you to adopt a systems approach. So our software will basically say, okay, how do you track your progress across different dimensions, and how do you build a weekly planner for your next steps? So we have pre-built that specialized software, and we're going to adapt it to your basically daily needs, so you can plan out and have maximum use of your time with Ganjina and with TajRupt. In terms of consulting, as I mentioned, all parts of the application. So how many slots there are? Because this is our pilot version, we have slots for 3 students. So 3 students can sign up for individual one-to-one courses with Ganjina. Each session is $20, which is a sale until May 5th. So basically, the reason this is a sale is initially our price was around $40, which is competitive. We benchmarked against other players in this market, and we decided to reduce the price considering the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. So $20 per session, 8 sessions. Total, you would pay $160 for 1 month of classes with Ganjina in an individual one-to-one coaching format. We'll talk about how you can continue in a separate chat. In terms of group format, so group format, the big difference is that obviously there are other students who will be with you in regards to the classes, right? So in the group format, there's a maximum of 5 slots, 5 students in one group. These group formats will be split. So for example, let's take 1 week. There will be 2 sessions. One session will be general overview of common application based on what students want to explore. So let's say there's an hour of time, right? We're going to break it down into, let's say, 4 sections of 15 minutes about different segments, right? Based on what students in that group want the topic to be. And the second class in that week, right? It would be basically group feedback for each other, along with Ganjina's feedback to the group, right? So the group would share their application resources, right? Obviously, if anything is confidential, they would not share it, but if they're comfortable with it, they would share essays. And in addition to Ganjina's feedback, other students would give feedback as well, right? So that's how we're thinking about it. And again, same format, 1 month, total of 8 classes, 2 classes per week during 4 weeks. The price is obviously a little bit lower since this is a group format. It's $15 per session. And if we convert it, then we're getting a number of $120 per month. Again, there's a sale until May 5th. After May 5th, which is basically 2 days from now, we will be raising the price back up to the old price of $40 for individual sessions, and accordingly for the group session as well. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so if you're interested in either the group format or individual format, what do? You have to email Ganjina in this email, go543@nyu.edu. That's her official NYU student email. So if you want to participate in individual or group format, please email Ganjina. And in the conversations, basically, you will get to see what her input is in that regard. And in the email, just say that, I'm a student, I participated in the webinar. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your goals are, and say specifically if you want to participate in individual format or group format. Obviously, Ganjina's sessions, like I'll come in as well occasionally to help out, just because, I want to make sure that this is our pilot format. You guys will help us build this for the future. So I'll personally participate as well during some of the sessions and help you guys outreach. And importantly, there's also this point about community I want to mention, right? This is going to be a community where we're going to open up, a group on Slack, and you guys will get to communicate with each other on Slack. And you can contact me, you can contact Ganjina, you can contact other resources that we're going to have within the chat. including the students I mentioned already on the chat, about your application components. So what we're offering to you is not just like some theoretical class. We're offering you a community that will qualitatively improve your chance of acceptance through helping you better identify what your personal goals are, self-reflection, right? So this is basically our sort of end of the slides portion of the webinar. As we covered it, again, individual format, group format. If you're interested, contact Ganjina as soon as possible. If you contact her before May 5th, that would count as basically signing up for the sale price. And yeah, and now we're open to questions. So please send your questions on the chat so we can talk about it. Okay, let's look at what kinds of questions have been asked. I did see a lot of questions about, you know, specifically how do we search for applications. Let me quickly say a few words there, and Ganjina, please feel free to jump in here as well. So the way scholarships work for international students is very interesting. This is not, you know, very well known outside of the US. Basically, universities operate on what's called endowments, right? So every university has an endowment, which is basically their fund. What happens is that they take that endowment, right? And once they take the endowment, they will invest it in the financial markets. They will get a return, and that return will help them fund their costs, professors' salaries, you know, administrative costs, buildings, classroom stuff, etc. So there's basically a few resources the university has. One is endowment returns, right? What they get from their endowment. Another is obviously tuition, which is what, you know, students would pay. Another one could be, you know, donations directly to the university. So what happens is that basically when they provide scholarships, universities in America and in general in Western countries, including Canada as well, when universities provide scholarships, those scholarships mostly come from alumni donations, right? So what happens is, let's say, you know, I'll give you guys an example of my scholarship at Knight Hennessy, Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, основатель компании, как говорят в странах СНГ, Nike, что грамматически неправильно, должен говорить Nike. He went to Stanford, right? And after he graduated from the GSB, he started Nike, and he was inspired by the company. So then he gave about $1 billion to Stanford for basically endowment. And that endowment, he told them, I want to give it to master students, right? So a student like me from Tajikistan can now come to Stanford and study. Why? Because Phil Knight gave a scholarship exactly for students like me, right? But that shows to you how this is a limited resource, right? For undergraduate level, vast majority of scholarships are given to American students. That is a fact. If anybody tells you that, hey, it's easy to get a scholarship as an international student, it's total lie. It's an absolute lie. Why? Because most alumni donations for scholarships are for American students, right? Especially for lower income students. Now, it doesn't mean that there are no universities that don't offer any scholarships. Obviously, there are. As an example, Stanford provides full scholarships for international students if your income is below a certain threshold. So in the case of Stanford, if your family's income is below $65,000 and you are accepted, you will get a full scholarship. You'll get full housing, full tuition. But there's a caveat. There's a concept that's called need blind, right? If a university is need blind, it means that they don't care about your financial status. If you're a good candidate, they will give you a scholarship. But most universities that provide scholarships are not need blind when it comes to international students, right? This is why this system is so complicated, because they get scholarships, donations for Americans. They say, if you, let's say, Ganjina, you're a great student, you're applying to Stanford, we would have accepted you with a scholarship if you were an American. But unfortunately, we will not, because you're an international student and we are not need blind. We have to consider, other Americans who are applying for it. That's why getting a scholarship is extremely difficult. And the fact that our students have gotten scholarships, Ganjina, full scholarship, Alex, 75%, Amit Hong, full scholarship, shows to you that we have experience of showing the right signals to universities that will maximize your chance. So I kind of answered to, how do you apply for Stanford? Again, fill out the common application. Make sure to mention that, your family's income is below a threshold, if it truly is, and contact Ganjina for individual or group classes to get more information. Which business university is the best for applying? I'm biased. I go to Stanford. I think GSB is the best university when it comes to business school. We're constantly ranked as #1, so I would say apply to GSB. But obviously, there's a number that are top. It's Stanford, Harvard, HBS, the Harvard Business School. There's also Wharton at University of Pennsylvania, which is also top. And I would say MIT Sloan is good. and probably Chicago Booth. Those 5 are considered top business schools. Okay, more questions. Come on, guys. Ganjina, I'll pass it on to you. Just tell us a little bit in the meantime until questions come in about how should they go about the process of common application? How should they budget time? What would you give advice there? Maybe you can reflect on your candid weekend at NYU Abu Dhabi as well.
Yeah, just to answer to some of the questions, a lot of people asking me, messaging me privately, asking that like whether or not NYU Abu Dhabi gives a full financial aid for international students. Yes, it gives, definitely, but it's very hard. The acceptance rate is 2%, I think. So you need to work very hard. It depends on your GPA, national exam scores, extracurriculars. But yes, it gives full funding, definitely. It's a very hard process, but for bright future. So yeah, should I just talk about the process of me applying? Do we have time? Yeah.
Until questions come in.
Yeah, let's see. Let me start talking about the process. So I remember during the 10th grade, I literally didn't have any idea of like what college application is, like what is college admissions. And then when I met TajRupt, I went there, I interned in TajRupt, and then they told me about American universities, how to apply, but my English was good. So that's the main point, that like your English also should be good. And then I found NYU Abu Dhabi. And then it was literally the only university that I applied, since I was thinking that either I'm going to stay in Tajikistan or I'm just going to go to NYU Abu Dhabi if I'm going to be accepted. Then I applied on 15th of December, I think. I got the email saying that like I was invited for candidate weekend. Candidate weekend is a 3 days kind of like weekend. You guys going to come to NYU Abu Dhabi, and then there is going to be interviews, you need to write essays, tests. So I came here, it was amazing. Imagine me from the Soviet system of education that didn't even go like to any other countries besides Tajikistan, coming to NYU Abu Dhabi without like literally knowing anything. And then yeah, I came here, I was here for 3 days. I was taking a lot of exams, interviews, writing essays, with NYU professors. And then after that, on March 3rd, I got the email saying that I was accepted to NYU Abu Dhabi. So it was a very long process. We will talk about it individually, because some of the students asking me whether or not we can have a Zoom meeting 101, so they can decide either to choose online or group meetings. Yes, definitely we can do that after the Zoom meeting. But yeah, it's a very long process. We can do this, guys.
Awesome. And there was also a question here
you.
on gap year. Do you want to say a few words about that, process, since you're going through it right now, kind of?
Gap year. I'm actually taking a gap year next semester. Since because of this, Corona time, a lot of students are thinking about taking gap year. So how the gap year works? Students request, so it's not the application. You specifically request the university that you want to take a gap semester or a gap year. It definitely 100% you can take it. You need to fill out some applications, and then if you have a financial aid, it's going to be 100%. They're going to give you back the financial aid, since university pays for 8 semesters. So how it's going to work, you guys going to apply, and then you're going to actually request for leave of absence. To get a leave of absence, then you're going to tell them some reasons. But then yes, definitely a lot of students actually before coming to NYU Abu Dhabi take gap semester or a gap year. I have a friend, for example, she was a student in Armenia. She studied in Armenian university for a year, but then she found NYU Abu Dhabi. So then she applied, and then she took a gap year before coming here. So yeah, and also other students, some students wrote that they were rejected. But then yeah, a lot of students, as an example, my cousin, she was rejected from NYU Abu Dhabi this year, and then she's reapplying next year. So the gap year works for this. You're going to take a gap semester, and then you're going to come back on November. You're going to apply again, and then you're going to come back to NYU Abu Dhabi.
Let me just make a comment about gap year as well, guys. So again, as I mentioned, it all depends on the quality of your input. In this case, your input would be gap year. So what do you do in that gap year? If you just end up, taking a vacation in Hawaii, that doesn't really increase your chance of getting accepted to university, right? But if you go out and let's say, I'll give you a crazy example. Let's say you're really passionate about modern art, right? You want to explore Jackson Pollock's 1952, like that famous artwork in the Museum of Modern Art, and you're going to write a research paper on Jackson Pollock's, sociological view of the world based on his 1952 painting. That is dope, right? That's a research project, and that will be an example of what's called capstone for many universities, right? It will signal that this student is an independent thinker who is very passionate about research. So again, that's one option. Another option is if you go ahead and some people do projects, right? You can select an issue that you want to focus on in your community. Like lots of students at TajRupt in Hujan, they do social impact projects, SIPs, right? One student, for example, recently designed a project where they created a recycling system between factories and schools, where paper and plastic is going to factories. Factories are providing money. And now we're scaling that to 10 schools in a particular town. So it all depends on how you spend that gap year, right? Ganjina, do you want to share about, what your plans are professionally? There was a question about career and employability. Maybe that's relevant to your gap plans, and then also what you want to do next summer.
This summer, I got accepted to I got an internship in Spain, venture capital, but then since because of Corona, they moved it to the next year. So now I'm taking gap semester. I'm gonna work on this TajRupt admissions, and the next year I'm gonna go and then work in Spain in venture capital. So that's the reason I'm taking gap semester for now.
And let me just comment that, like, guys, like being in business school, right? Like here in Silicon Valley, like venture capital is really hard to get into, right? Like VC is usually the way it works is you go work in a consulting company or like an investment bank. And only then after a few years of experience, you get to work, let's say in venture capital. The fact that Ganjina is going directly for a fellowship at a venture capital firm in Spain is like ridiculous. So I'm super proud of that. In regards to other questions, there's a few about master's level. I guess I'll take those real quick. So the user Air is asking a question about UChicago specifically. I'll generalize using inductive reasoning here. So for masters, broadly, there are two types of scholarships. One is university-based. I mean, this is true for all scholarships, but like in general, university-based, and another is foundation-based or external scholarships, right? So for masters, actually, there are lots of scholarships for international students. Why? Because in the way the system works with academics in the US, a proportion of international students is larger in masters than in undergrad, generally. Why? Because in masters, students are coming in with work experience, right? Or research experience. And in that regard, universities in the US see that, researchers from Asian countries, from Latin American countries, from African, European, they have the same sort of work experience professionally as undergrads from America. So that's why they give more opportunities. And in that regard, with UChicago, I'm sure they give out, many scholarships. It all depends on what's your specification. Like, what are you going to study masters in? Data analytics, right? Business, what else? Chicago Booth, they do have scholarships for MBA students, and those are a little bit competitive. In terms of external donations, there are scholarships. There are a few for masters, right? One is the Aga Khan Foundation scholarship. They provide partially grant, 50%, and partially a loan, 50%. It's not for all countries, but for some countries in post-Soviet sphere, they give out scholarships. Another is OFID, the OPEC Fund for International Development. They also provide scholarships. I believe this year they gave a sort of a break because of the Corona situation, but in general, they do provide master's funding. It has to be in a development-related field. There's also a ton more, right? There's the Asian Development Bank scholarships for masters. There's also a few more that are offered by different international organizations. So including the Open Society Foundation. Again, reach out to us separately, individual group format. We can talk to you more about that. Okay, and there's another question for, does TajRupt teach Dushanbe students for applying universities? Yes, again, it doesn't matter, right? You can be in Yerevan, you can be in Moscow, you can be in Dushanbe. This TajRupt admissions is all online, it's virtual. So Ganjina will have online chats with you through Zoom, and we'll have a Slack community where I'll be part of it as well. Prices are, maybe Ganjina, you can go back one slide.
Yeah, let me go back.
Great. Those are the prices. Maybe some people just joined in a little bit late. Okay, Ganjina, you want to take other questions in the meantime? We have about 5 more minutes.
Let's see. Where are you from? We're both guys from Tajikistan. I'm from Tajikistan. Azizjan is from Tajikistan as well. Can you repeat the name of the firm you're going to? I'm gonna work in Gala Fellows Venture Capital in Spain this next summer, inshallah. Let's see what other questions.
Does having a bachelor's degree from a top-ranking university guarantee your employability at a good spot? Some people say that it does not matter. What matters is your master's degree. I'll take that one since this is like it's more relevant. So again, let's adopt an outcome mindset, right? You getting a job after graduation in general is a function of many inputs, right? A lot of them are your inputs, what major you choose, right? What internships you do, but there are also other inputs that are outside of your control. As an example, it's specific to what you're applying for. If you're applying for a consulting job, yes, those are very hard to get because there's lots of competition. If you are studying art history and you're applying for a research assistant position at a university after graduation, odds are you will get that job, right? So employability in general, it depends on your major specifically, the industry, and most importantly nowadays, the economic context, right? So the US is heading into a recession, first time in 12 years this year. And obviously the employment market will contract, meaning that it will be tougher to get a job. So it all depends on, again, specific things and also broader macroeconomic trends. Which IT universities do you know that give full scholarships for international undergraduate students? Again, guys, just to make sure, right? So there's no such thing as IT university when you apply to, like, let's say US. There is common application where you apply for a university to pursue computer science, as an example. So again, a lot of universities offer scholarships. Those are very competitive. They offer limited scholarships for international students. And as we mentioned, it's all through the common application. In terms of best computer science colleges, if that's what you're asking for, that provide scholarships, Stanford obviously provides a scholarship for computer science students. Harvard does it. You can look at, sort of all of the Ivy Leagues. Besides it, I believe Georgia Tech is also a good one to check out. They're not an Ivy League, but they do provide scholarships, at least partial ones for computer science. So Virginia Tech, we can have you connect with Amit Khon later on, who's one of our students. If you join the TajRupt admissions chat, he basically is going to study computer science at University of Akron. He can help you sort of pick universities because he also had this search himself last year on looking at computer science universities. Okay, Ganjina, last questions?
Okay, is it possible to work during your studies at university? Yes, of course. Yeah, as an example, I did a lot of, you can also do your internships and then assistantships. As an example, during my freshman year, I did my internship in Harvard Innovation Labs, sophomore year in UNICEF, and then next year I'm gonna do it in venture capital in Spain. And then in terms of assistantship, each department in the university offers student assistantship. So it depends on the university and as well department. It's like, I believe 1 hour is like $10. So this semester I'm doing my assistantship in interactive media lab. So yeah, yes, it's possible to work when you're in university.
In terms of masters over bachelors, I hate to sound like a broken record. Really depends, right? Again, like, what are you studying? Because for example, for MBA, yes, MBA plays a huge role if you're applying for a product manager position at Google, right? If that's your goal, like you want to be a product manager and you want to be in tech, probably having an MBA definitely, well, 100% it increases your chance of getting that job. In terms of, let's say, like software engineering positions, you don't really need a master's. Like most, students go right out of undergrad straight to become a software engineer at Google, and they basically just, go on to have that progression without having a master's in computer science. About summer plans, very important, guys. Definitely when you're in school, if you want to really showcase that, you are a strong applicant for scholarship, you have to have a clear plan that is related to your extracurriculars. Summer is not a time for vacation if you want to get into a university in America with a scholarship, right? Like, for example, I'll give you guys the example of Amit Khon, our student. Like in the summer, he took part in a class on ancient philosophy with a student from Harvard. We had an intern from Harvard last summer at TajRupt in Tajikistan. He was pursuing a dual degree at Harvard Business School and Harvard Kennedy School. He was a master's student. He came in and he was running a capstone in ancient philosophy where they looked at, starting from Plato and Aristotle to Montesquieu, Descartes, and and Mitron was part of that whole group. And at the end, he ended up, doing the research project, and he also taught classes himself. So that showed to, the university that he's ready for academic sort of research, academic work. So summer, spring, definitely not a time to rest. For standardized tests, basically vast majority of universities require SAT and they require TOEFL for international students. There are some that don't require SAT anymore. As an example, UChicago. UChicago does not require SAT anymore. NYU has never required SAT to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Ganjin, do you want to say a few words about NYU?
Yeah, NYU, since, as I said, there are like more than 130 nationalities here at NYU Abu Dhabi. NYU Abu Dhabi doesn't require specifically SAT or TOEFL scores. If you guys have national exams, probably all of you have, you can submit your scores, your national exam scores. It's going to be at the same level as SAT or TOEFL scores.
Great. So maybe we'll wrap up, right, Ganjina? I think we're almost at time.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just review once again, maybe at the previous slide, so we're all clear. I'll maybe switch to Russian, чтобы вот просто подытожить, да, наш разговор сегодняшний. Два формата, индивидуальный, групповой. Вот здесь вы видите цены. Они также доступны на нашем сайте tajrupt.org/admission. До 5 мая вы можете зарегистрироваться на индивидуальный курс или на групповой курс. Оба курса будут, Ганджина будет руководителем этих курсов, но я также буду участвовать, чтобы тоже как бы помочь в пилотном варианте нашего TajRupt Admissions формата. Если вас интересует либо индивидуальный, либо групповой формат, пожалуйста, отправьте email Ганджине, вот ее электронная почта, go543@nyu.edu, и в этом имейле, пожалуйста, укажите просто кратко о себе, да, вот описание, где вы учитесь, какие университеты у вас являются целью, да, сколько вам лет, а также какой формат участия вам более удобен, индивидуальный или групповой. Надеюсь, этот вебинар был полезен для вас. Thank you so much, guys. I want to give a special thank you to Ganjina, our star TajRupt proud alumni, for everything she has done and continues to do. And best of luck, Ganjina, in this TajRupt admission chat.
Well, thank you so much. I'm very excited for all of you guys to see all of you. Yeah, here is my email, go543@nyu.edu. Please email me if you're interested before 5th of May. If you want to get it with a discount, after 5th of May, it's automatically going to be without a discount. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. If you have any questions, you can email me or you can message me via social media or Telegram, WhatsApp, whatever you prefer. Great, let's wrap it up.